Police Department to report the supposed theft. Officer Austin Hopp responded to the call and tracked down Ms. Garner as she was walking home on the side of the road. Officer Hopp pulled up behind Ms. Garner with his lights on, and when she did not stop, he stopped his vehicle and approached her.
Ugh. All right, let's stop, ma'am. I don't think you want to play it this way. Ma'am, police, stop.
They threw a 73-year-old grandmother face first onto the pavement. They shattered her shoulder. They dislocated it.
You want to stop with lights on, siren? Stop. You just left Walmart. Do you need to be arrested right now? No. Okay. Let's stop.
After failing to effectively communicate with Ms. Garner, Officer Hopp grabs her and throws her to the ground in an attempt to restrain her. Ms. Garner, visibly confused, repeatedly tells Officer Hopp that she's going home as the two engage in a brief scuffle. Eventually, Officer Hopp...
And then, under the flickering fluorescent lights of the police station, they high-fived each other while watching the replay of her screams. We all saw the footage. It made you sick to your stomach. But you know, just like I know, that the files they tried to bury went so much deeper than a badge. This is the expose on the Loveland files, a story of ritualistic humiliation that a corrupt elite tried to scrub from the internet, because they don't want you to know what happens when justice actually catches up to the untouchable. Karen Garner was a 5-foot-tall, 80-pound woman suffering from dementia. She didn't know where she was. She walked out of a Walmart with about $14 worth of soda and candy, and when she forgot to pay, she tried to hand her credit card to the employees. They refused it. They let her wander off into the street, confused and broken. And then they called the cops. Officer Austin Hopp pulled up behind her, lights flashing. She didn't understand the command. She couldn't process the siren. Her brain was literally dying, robbing her of speech, and all she could do was whisper that she was trying to go home. That's when Hopp grabbed her. You see the footage. He twists her arm behind her back and throws her into the ground with a sickening crack. We all heard it. That sound wasn't just a bone breaking. It was the sound of a demonic level of sadism hiding behind a uniform.
Lawful orders and to fight me. This is what happens when you fight the police. I have to use force to safely detain her. That's what this is. This isn't just some random act of aggression.
Officer Jalali assists Officer Hopp in restraining Ms. Garner's feet and placing her in the patrol vehicle, after which a concerned citizen confronts Officer Hopp about his conduct. Although Officer Hopp informs the citizen that he was within his authority to use force against Ms. Garner, his conduct almost certainly violated department policy, Colorado law, and the U.S. Constitution. Section 18-1-707 of the Colorado Revised Statutes currently states that, quote, peace officers in carrying out their duties shall apply non-violent means when possible before resorting to the use of physical force. A peace officer may use physical force only if non-violent means would be ineffective in effecting an arrest.
He cuffed her broken body, and then Officer Daria Jalali arrived to help hogtie.
Hopp is able to place Ms. Garner into handcuffs and lead her back to his patrol car.
I'm not doing anything.
Right now you're resisting, which is not going to fly with me. And before that, you tried to steal from Walmart. And they caught you and took the stuff back. Stand up. Oh, boy.
I'm not going anywhere.
Why are you fighting with me? And why are you trying to slip the cuffs off?
I'm going home.
Stop.
A terrified elderly woman on the asphalt. The body camera shows them treating this frail, mentally shattered victim like a wild animal. But here is where the narrative flips. We've been conditioned to see the victim as weak, but Karen Garner became something else entirely. She became an unlikely, silenced hero. She didn't march in the streets. She didn't give speeches. She sat in that jail cell, bleeding and untreated for hours, absorbing the wickedness of a system designed to protect monsters. Her silence was louder than their sirens. A whistleblower who saw the security footage inside the station later leaked the truth. Hopp Jalali, and a community service officer named Tyler Blackett weren't just filling out paperwork. They were gathered around a screen, replaying the moment her shoulder snapped, laughing and slapping hands like they just won a ball game.
This policy in his interactions with her.
Negative, sorry. I got nothing else. It's just from a credit card she has. Copy. She's probably like 4'10", 5 foot, maybe like 100 pounds.
Had you said you were fine, I would have gotten here quicker.
Oh, you were good. I had her handled. If it was a big dude, it'd have been different. But she was like 20 pounds. What's the 200?
For what?
Well, at least resisting right now.
Is that a 200? Yeah, okay.
Hey.
Let's get her down to the station.
Okay, we don't need to wait for Capella.
No, we can see what I mean, we know she, what's it say?
She stole some stuff.
They celebrated the fracturing of an old woman's body. That is not policing. That is a satanic mockery of protection. They thought they were blackball-proof. They thought the thin blue line was a fortress. The internal report, written by Hope himself, claimed the suspect fought against officers continuously and sustained minor lacerations. That's a lie. A bold, documented, provable lie. Sergeant Phil Metzler, a supposed supervisor, read that report and rubber-stamped the brutality as reasonable and within policy. Nobody stopped it. Nobody filed a real rap sheet. The charges for the alleged theft were dropped instantly. But not because they were merciful. It was because they knew the video evidence of the arrest would eventually...
Instructing a peace officer regardless of whether the Walmart employees decide to prosecute her for attempting to shoplift. Although laws vary from state to state, in Colorado, individuals can still be found guilty of resisting arrest when they are not convicted of the charge they were being arrested for. Section 18-8-103 of the Colorado Revised Statutes, which defines the offense of resisting arrest, states that, quote, "It is no defense to a prosecution under this section that the peace officer was attempting to make an arrest which in fact was unlawful if he was acting under color of his official authority, and in attempting to make the arrest he was not resorting to unreasonable or excessive force giving rise to the right of self-defense." However, if charges were pursued against Ms. Garner, she would have a strong argument that she was acting in self-defense, as a court would likely conclude that Officer Hopp was using unreasonable...
They celebrated the fracturing of an old woman's body. That is not policing. That is a satanic mockery of protection. The real documented event is the settlement. $3 million. The city of Loveland didn't pay that out of kindness. They paid it hoping Karen would disappear. They paid it to hide the names. They paid it because they didn't want you to see the legend of Karen Garner rising from that jail cell bench. And that brings us to the moment where everything makes sense. You can't look at this as one bad cop. This was a crew of bad cops, a corrupt sergeant, and a city council that closed ranks until the very last second.
And excessive force. Additionally, Ms. Garner's mental condition could serve as another defense if charges were filed against her, since to obtain convictions for both resisting arrest and obstructing a peace officer, which is codified in Section 18-8-104 of the Colorado Revised Statutes, the government would be required to prove that she acted, quote-unquote, knowingly, which Section 18-1-501 defines as being aware of the nature of one's conduct. Under Section 18-1-803 of the Colorado Revised Statutes, evidence of a quote-unquote impaired mental condition, which Section 16-8-102 defines as, quote, a condition of mind caused by mental disease or defect that prevents...
They celebrated the fracturing of an old woman's body. That is not policing. That is a satanic mockery of protection. This connects to a larger cultural moment, where you finally see the machine for what it is. The FBI didn't raid that station. The corporate media tried to paint this as a rare mistake. But you saw the high fives. You saw the cover-up. Hopp and Jalali are now facing criminal charges, not because the system works, but because a family refused to be silenced, and a whistleblower inside those walls had a moral compass that pointed toward God. The officers resigned, but resigning isn't justice. It's an escape hatch.
the person from forming the culpable mental state that is an essential element of any crime charged, can be offered as a defense to show that a criminal defendant was incapable of acting knowingly. Given Officer Hop's use of excessive force, Ms. Garner's right to self-defense, and her impaired mental condition, it is highly unlikely that she would be convicted of resisting or obstructing. And this is likely why the charges against her were quickly dropped.
Hey, you got the door open. Come on, Karen.
I'm gonna run.
You're gonna run? Oh, good thing we got the hot one.
I was gonna pay for it.
But you didn't.
After the
They were supposed to be guardians, and instead, they hunted a child of God who couldn't even remember her own birth date. The deep state of local policing relies on you believing that these monsters are necessary. But when they shattered Karen's shoulder, they also shattered the illusion. What they did in that back room watching the replay wasn't adrenaline. It was a ritual, a bonding exercise in cruelty. We have to call it what it is. Evil celebrating its work. They never once stopped to ask if she was mentally ill, even though the department's own policy manual tells them to recognize dementia.
On 3 factors identified by the Supreme Court in the 1989 case of Graham versus Garner. Now, quoting, the severity of the crime at issue, whether the suspect poses an immediate threat to the safety of the officers or others, and whether he is actively resisting arrest or attempting to evade arrest by flight. While it technically could be argued that Ms. Garner was attempting to evade arrest by slowly walking away from Officer Hop in her confusion, the first 2 Graham factors clearly weigh against the use of force in this situation. Ms. Garner was accused of the attempted theft of Pepsi, a candy bar, a t-shirt, and some Shout wipe refills, which is a petty offense in Colorado. And as an elderly woman with dementia who was 5 feet tall,
they chose rage over grace. They chose violence over protection. And because she couldn't speak, they assumed she had no power. They were wrong. Karen Garner became a legend of silent endurance, a mirror held up to the soul of a demonic institution.
Involved until Ms. Garner filed a federal lawsuit against the city of Loveland, Officers Hop and Jalali, and Sergeant Metzler on April 14, 2021. Ms. Garner's attorney, Sarah Shilka, publicly released the body camera footage, and in response to national outrage over the incident, Officer Hop was placed on administrative leave, and Officer Jalali and Sergeant Metzler were reassigned to administrative duties pending an internal investigation. All 3 officers, as well as Officer Blackett, later resigned, and the city retained law enforcement consulting firm Hillert Hines to conduct an independent investigation of the arrest and the department's policies, practices, and procedures. On May 19, 2021, the Colorado 8th Judicial District Critical Incident Response Team concluded an investigation into the incident, and criminal charges were filed against former officers Hop and Jalali. Mr. Hop pled not guilty to all 3 charges.
Where do we go from here? The anger shouldn't be cooling off. It should be burning brighter. The elites in Loveland wrote a check and walked away, thinking the peons would forget. Hop's trial is a moment of reckoning, but we all know how these things usually end. A slap on the wrist, a reinstatement elsewhere, a quiet life, while Karen lives with PTSD and a body that will never heal. She carried the cross for this broken system, and the system's response was to pay hush money and delete the records. So I'm asking you directly, because I can't shake the image of them high-fiving a broken grandmother. What would you have done if you were standing there in that parking lot, watching them twist her arm? Would you have just stood there with your phone? Or would you have stepped in and risked it all to stop a demon wearing a badge?